This young woman, Yun Ya-yu, was a budding scientist with aspirations to change the world. One day, she witnessed authorities culling pigs to contain a rampant swine fever outbreak. The sight left her shocked and nauseated. Not long after, her twin sister contracted Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, the human form of mad cow disease, likely brought back from her studies abroad. Yun Ya-yu watched helplessly as her sister, her brain function rapidly deteriorating, writhed in agony before ultimately succumbing to the disease. The loss left Yun Ya-yu utterly alone. Years later, as an accomplished scientist, Yun Ya-yu was haunted by guilt over a decision she'd made. "I shouldn't have cremated you," she'd whisper to her deceased sister. "I should have preserved your body, replaced your organs, your brain. I just want to touch you. I miss you so much." Driven by her grief and scientific ambition, Yun Ya-yu built a successful biotech company, BF, specializing in cultivated meat as a replacement for traditional animal products. BF's artificial meats became a global phenomenon, exported worldwide and embraced by consumers. The demand for hunting and slaughtering animals for food and clothing plummeted. Greenhouse gas emissions from livestock significantly decreased, contributing to the fight against global warming. Rewind to January 2024. Yun Ya-yu, along with 5 other corporate heads, accompanied President Lee Mun-jae on a clandestine trip to the Azoran war zone. The president, protected by Captain Ki-woon and other high-ranking officers, was visiting a military camp when terrorists attacked. A devastating explosion killed 2 government ministers and numerous officers. Captain Ki-woon, mourning the loss of his comrades, visited the injured president in the hospital. The attack had cost President Lee Mun-jae both his legs and his presidency. Captain Ki-woon dedicated years to uncovering the truth behind the attack. Given the secrecy surrounding the trip, the former president believed the mastermind had to be one of the 4 surviving corporate leaders, including Yun Ya-yu. Ki-woon investigated the other 3, finding nothing. Now, the former president was convinced Yun Ya-yu was responsible. "As soon as I took office," she demanded, "I repeal the law labeling cultivated meat as genetically modified food." The US and France eventually recognized it as regular meat. Since my resignation, BF's growth has been exponential, and they've heavily supported the current administration. "I'm certain that woman did something illegal. Investigate her. Bring her down." The former president instructed Ki-woon to infiltrate BF and become Yun Ja-yu's right-hand man. "I'll help you become her bodyguard." Armed with an invitation from the former president, Ki-woon attended BF's latest product launch. CEO Yun Ja-yu took the stage for BF's global product launch. She unveiled their latest masterpiece, successfully cultivated seafood, a culmination of their work throughout 2025. "Our seafood is free of parasites, microplastics, and mercury," she declared. "I assure you, the day we no longer need to harm the world for sustenance is fast approaching. Within 6 months, we will successfully cultivate all major grains and crops, including rice, potatoes, and even palm oil, minimizing deforestation." Her speech concluded to thunderous applause. She then yielded the floor to Professor Kim Sin-gu to detail the company's new technology. Surrounded by a phalanx of bodyguards, Yun Ya-yu prepared to depart. Outside, protesters, angered by BF's disruption of traditional food industries, leading to widespread bankruptcies, thronged the streets. They hurled eggs and tomatoes at her waiting car, creating chaos. Riot police arrived to quell the unrest. Former Captain Ki-woon, in a separate vehicle, followed close behind. The police cleared a path for Yun Ja-yu's car. Later that evening, Christmas Eve, her car was stalled in holiday traffic as the rain began to pour. The festive atmosphere contrasted sharply with Yun Ja-yu's somber reflections on her deceased twin sister. Suddenly, a man fell from a building onto her car. Ki-woon, emerging from his vehicle, rushed forward and instructed the bodyguards not to move the victim inside the car, fearing further injury. A mysterious man holding an umbrella stood nearby, observing the scene before quietly slipping away. Prime Minister Seonu-yi received a report. The man who fell onto Yun Ja-yu's car was the owner of a livestock farm driven to bankruptcy by BF. He died en route to the hospital. The incident appeared to be a targeted attack against Yun Ja-yu. Yun Ja-yu awoke in the hospital with neck injuries. Along with her head of security, An-san, she reviewed the video footage of the incident. She noticed the presence of the strange man with the umbrella. Lawyer Jiang entered her room, informing her that the police wanted to question her security team. They suspected a leak of her itinerary, enabling the attacker to target her. An San suggested hiring additional security. When Yun Jiayu inquired about the man with the umbrella, Lawyer Jiang dismissed him as a bystander who happened to be knowledgeable in first aid. "I feel like I've seen him somewhere before," she mused, suspicious of the man's convenient appearance. Meanwhile, Dr. Kim Sin-gu entered BF's lab and contacted his assistant, Hong, requesting an important file. He discovered his computer was encrypted. Hong realized the entire company's network had been hit with ransomware. Back home, Ki-woon opened his computer to find a news article questioning the sterility of BF's culture medium, alleging it could be teeming with bacteria. Assistant Hong reported to Jiayu. "They're demanding 80 billion world in Bitcoin within 48 hours to unlock the lab files." Captain C. Huey added, "No company or organization has ever successfully decrypted citizens' malware." Director Jiayu wondered aloud. Could this group be behind the article accusing our culture medium of being contaminated? Lawyer Jiang replied, "I'll go to the newspaper office and investigate." At the newspaper office, Lawyer Jiang spoke to the editor-in-chief. He explained, "We received the tip about BF's contaminated culture medium from an anonymous email. It was sent to several prominent media figures, so I couldn't ignore such a hot story. I traced the IP address, and it links back to this." He showed her an image. Lawyer Jiang recognized the symbol of the citizen organization. Back at BF, Director Jiayu and 5 key personnel began investigating how Citizen had infiltrated the company. They had hacked the lab's internal router to plant the malware. The Bitcoin ransom demand was designed to make them untraceable. Dr. Kim was furious that his life's work on the culture medium was being slandered. Lawyer Jiang realized they had struck while everyone was at the product launch. Director Jiayu ordered, "Shut down the lab for 2 days and keep this quiet. Set up a new firewall for the lab. Request culture medium analysis from food safety organizations to refute these baseless rumors. Only the 6 of us here know about the lab being hacked." Later, outside, Lawyer Jiang handed Yun Jiayu a background check on the man from the accident. "I remember seeing him at a meeting at Sangha Corporation. He was Chairman Park's bodyguard, but he's no longer employed there." Back in her office, Director Yun Jiayu consulted her virtual assistant, Jiang Su. She learned that the Naval Intelligence Agency had also been targeted by Citizen around 2022. Ki-woon had worked there at that time. This gave Jiayu pause, making her wonder if she should distance herself from him. The next day, former Captain Ki-woon arrived at BF. He was greeted by manager An San and escorted to the VR training room. Ki-woon donned protective gear and a VR headset. A man in a suit appeared virtually, and Ki-woon engaged in simulated hand-to-hand combat to test his close-quarters skills. After subduing his virtual opponent, a virtual gun appeared, testing his reflexes. Following this, a virtual vehicle materialized to assess his driving abilities. Ki-woon passed with ease. Manager An San then interviewed him. When asked why he left Sangha Corporation, Ki-woon replied, "Because Chairman Park no longer needed my protection. Director Yun Jiayu is the one who needs a close protection officer." In 2019, she was almost assassinated during a visit to a manufacturing branch in North America. In 2024, she was also targeted by an extremist at a Greenpeace meeting. Ki-woon then pointedly inquired about the salary for being Director Yun Jiayu's bodyguard. However, An San informed him that they would deliberate on his employment and dismissed him. Later, manager An San reported to Jiayu, "Ki-woon is highly capable but quite blunt. He seems loyal, but not necessarily obedient. I'm not sure he's trustworthy." The director pondered, "I'll give it some thought." At that moment, Lawyer Jiang announced she had some bad news and some very bad news. The bad news was that Prime Minister Sianu Yi wanted to meet with Jiayu regarding the rumors about contaminated culture medium. The very bad news was contained in a video. A South American gang had put a $3 million bounty on Jiayu's head, claiming she threatened their business. They were a former drug cartel that had transitioned into burning down forests for farmland and exploiting locals. The bounty was placed after Jiayu announced her plans to successfully cultivate agricultural products within 6 months. Jiayu was visibly disturbed by the news. she immediately inquired about the man who had interviewed for the bodyguard position. Meanwhile, Ki-woon returned home to find his pet cat missing. He realized someone had broken in and grabbed a knife for protection. Entering a room, he successfully subdued an intruder with the knife. Another man outside was holding Ki-woon's cat hostage. The intruder inside struggled and knocked the knife from Ki-woon's hand. After a tense fight, Ki-woon managed to overpower him again. The leader of the intruders displayed a picture of a woman and child from Ki-woon's computer. "I know you sent your niece abroad for school," he said. "Bring BF's Yeon Ya-yu to us. I have business with her." He offered Ki-woon a stack of unmarked bills as a bribe, promising to leave his family alone. Ki-woon bent down to pick up the money, then used the opportunity to subdue the leader with a knife. The leader told him to open the door, saying, "She'll explain everything." Ki-woon cautiously opened the door to find Lawyer Jeong standing outside. It turned out to be a loyalty test. Lawyer Jeong drove Ki-woon to BF to meet Director Ja-yu. She opened the office door for him. Inside, Ki-woon demanded that Ja-yu not use his family as leverage in tests. He then abruptly told her to move away from the window, warning of a possible ambush. Ya-yu addressed Ki-woon. "You appeared just when we needed you, possessing all the required skills. I've considered whether your appearance is anything more than coincidence, given your presence at the accident and your background as a bodyguard." Ki-woon explained, "I was returning from the BF event when the incident occurred. I was there escorting a client, nothing more." Ya-yu questioned him. "When you worked at Naval Intelligence, they were also attacked by citizen, weren't they? Did you decrypt the ransomware or pay them?" Ki-woon responded, "That's classified information, but no one has ever caught the perpetrators behind those attacks." Ya-yu showed Ki-woon the current state of their lab, mirroring the situation he'd faced at Naval Intelligence. Ki-woon observed, "These organizations typically unlock the files after receiving payment, but I'm not sure if they've exfiltrated your data. If they cash out 80 billion in Bitcoin at once, you might be able to trace them." Ya-yu said, "They'll likely break it up and withdraw from different exchanges, but I have to try to catch them." Ya-yu called Lawyer Jeong and instructed her to pay the ransom. As soon as the Bitcoin was transferred, the lab files were unlocked. Ya-yu's virtual assistant reminded her of an appointment in 40 minutes. Bodyguard Kim Ho-seung opened the car door for Ya-yu as Ki-woon escorted her downstairs. Ki-woon recognized Ho-seung as the man he'd fought in the VR simulation. He joined them in the car to escort Director Ja-yu to her appointment. Team leader Seo Hui noticed that the lab files had been unlocked and immediately sent a message to the company group chat to inform his colleagues. Division head Onsen had just entered a memorial park when the sky opened up and it began to pour. He intended to pay his respects at the resting place of the man who had fallen onto Director Yun's car and saw the man's mother and sister weeping inconsolably there. Just then, Onsen received a call from Assistant Hong requesting a meeting. "I'll call you back later," Onsen told her. The division head stood at a distance, paying his respects to the deceased owner of the livestock company. The man who had been holding the umbrella at the scene of the accident was also present. Ki-woon and his bodyguard colleague, Ho-seung, waited outside Prime Minister Seon-woo-ye's residence. The young bodyguard was getting acquainted with Ki-woon and showed off his employee ID card. He expressed his desire for a blue lanyard ID, believing it signified greater authority. Division head Onsen arrived at the hospital emergency room. A police officer informed him. Assistant Hong's car had an accident. It went off the road into a river due to the slippery conditions from the rain. Luckily, someone spotted her in time, but she hasn't regained consciousness yet. Yeon Ya-yu met with Prime Minister Seon-woo-ye and informed him about the recent hacking incident at her company's lab. "Our lab holds the core technology that dominates the cultured meat market, so I don't think the hackers didn't make any copies. Cryptocurrency leaves a trail as soon as it's exchanged, so I hope you can help us find the culprit. They're bound to withdraw the money eventually." The Prime Minister replied, "BF's reputation affects the reputation of this country. How would the public react if I disclosed this hacking incident? You would be the first Prime Minister in history to catch the perpetrator of a ransomware attack." The Prime Minister agreed to help Director Ya-yu, but under two conditions. First, I want your company to donate to basic industries. You were generous enough to pay those thieves 80 billion, so you should be willing to give the same amount to the people, shouldn't you? Second, you must publicly prove that your culture medium is safe, which means disclosing its ingredients. Yun Ya-yu immediately refused. That's the core of this industry. It can't be disclosed. Doing so would be like shutting down my own company. I will provide proof that our cultured meat is safe and donate the full amount. I hope Interpol will keep an eye on the exchanges for me, won't you? The Prime Minister agreed to this exchange of interests, and they shook hands. As Director Yun Ja-yu walked to her car, she muttered to herself, "What a sly fox." Ya-yu noticed a missed call from Onsen and returned it. She learned that Assistant Hong was in the emergency room after her car had gone into a river due to the rain. The police would recover the car the following day and examine its black box. Afterwards, the two bodyguards escorted Director Yun Ja-yu back to BF headquarters. Ki-woon accompanied her inside. Yun Ja-yu realized that all the unusual events were connected to the lab. First, the computer system, and now the lab assistant's accident. After Yun Ya-yu entered her office, Ki-woon left. Back home, he turned on his computer. After checking on his sister and niece overseas, he removed the memory card from the miniature camera hidden in his shirt button and inserted it into his computer to review the day's events. Ki-woon looked at the hacker's ransom note and recalled a previous incident. When the Naval Intelligence Agency's computer system was attacked by the hacker group Citizen X, he had discovered that the organization originated from Russia. Shortly after, Ya-yu received a call from lawyer Jiang informing her that bodyguard Ki-woon was waiting for her downstairs. He couldn't enter without an employee ID, so she should go down and meet him. Ki-woon explained to Director Yun Ya-yu. Back then, the intelligence agency concluded that Citizen was a Russian organization. This is the warning they received at the time. It's all in English, but the punctuation is Russian. These quotation marks are specifically used in Russian. Other countries rarely use them in writing like this. Can I see the screenshot of the lab's hack? They only used parentheses, which are primarily used in Korean, and there aren't any Russian characters. Someone impersonated Citizen to hide their identity. This person is likely someone close to you, someone by your side. Ya-yu immediately ordered her virtual assistant, Jiang-su, call team leader Seo Hui to the lab right away. The team leader drove to the lab. Director Yun Ya-yu began compiling data to determine the most likely impersonator. Only Onsen had been absent from the product launch event, but Professor Kim had also left early. Could he have feigned anger to conceal his involvement? Why did Assistant Hong speed at 5 p.m.? Lawyer Jiang was also the first to know when the Bitcoin was transferred. She also had access to the lab's internal network. Ultimately, which of the five was the deceiver? Team leader Seo Hui activated the lab's surveillance system. Ya-yu asked the virtual assistant to display the current locations of all personnel with access to the lab's internal network. Seo Hui entered the code to initiate the command, and the current locations of all lab personnel appeared on the screen. Ya-yu asked him to check if anyone had purchased plane or train tickets to leave the country after 4 p.m. that day. Seo Hui entered his password to confirm the command and learned that Professor Kim had booked a flight to the United States to visit his son after his upcoming retirement. The director then requested a list of any employees who had received transfers of 10 million won or more into their personal accounts after 4 p.m. The result was negative, so Ya-yu asked the virtual assistant to monitor and notify her if anyone received a large sum of money. Director Yun Ya-yu then dismissed team leader Seo Hui. However, bodyguard Ki-woon secretly followed him in his car, as he was one of Director Yun Ja-yu's suspects. However, Yun Ya-yu realized that team leader Seo Hui couldn't be the blackmailer. He could have easily used his computer skills to embezzle money from BF more discreetly. Ya-yu began to think about the extraordinary knowledge that Ki-woon had provided. He had also urged her to pay the Bitcoin ransom. She reproached herself, why did I trust someone I just met? She began to research Ki-woon's background, provided by her virtual assistant. She discovered that he had escorted former President Lee Mun-jae in Azorin earlier that year. The bombing had occurred afterward. At that moment, Ki-woon called Director Yun Ja-yu with a report. Team leader Seo Hui went straight home after leaving the lab. Yayu asked, "Why did you hide the information about President Lee Man-jae from me? Come back here and talk to me right now." Ki-woon returned to BF and explained to Jayu, "I was an officer then and was ordered to escort the head of state on a visit to the Azoran battlefield. I was only with the president for 30 minutes before the bombing happened." Yun Yayu said, "You clearly know I was there that day. Why didn't you tell me this? Even Chairman Park of Sang-ha Group was there, and he used to be his bodyguard. Isn't that a little suspicious? Are you still in contact with former President Lee Man-jae?" When Ki-woon said, "I only met him once after the bombing," Yayu walked away, unconvinced. Ki-woon followed, insisting, "I only found out later that you were at the Azoran battlefield. I considered Lee Man-jae a terrible president. Now, his grandson is the prime minister, so I think they've planted a spy in my company. I'm wondering if you were the one behind the ransomware attack." Ki-woon repeatedly explained he wasn't a spy and was eager to catch the person impersonating the citizen organization. But Director Yun Ya-yu just walked inside without another word. Ki-woon then called former President Lee Man-jae, asking him to arrange a prison visit with the inmate convicted of the Azoran bombing. He reported, "Yun Ya-yu suspects me. Sooner or later, she'll figure it out." The former president called his grandson, the prime minister, to arrange the prison visit for Ki-woon. Prime Minister Seonu Yi tried to get information about BF's lab, but the former president said, today was Ki-woon's first day on the job. The police began recovering Assistant Hong's car. Ya-yu was watching from a nearby car, and Ki-woon was also present to assess the situation. Ki-woon overheard the police discussing, "We didn't find any cameras in the victim's car." They both drove away. Asen met with Director Yun Ya-yu and Ki-woon, informing them, "The police called. They said Assistant Hong's case might not be an accident." Ya-yu responded, "The ransomware attack might have been an inside job by someone impersonating the citizen organization. It could be related to Assistant Hong's accident." Asen added, "Assistant Hong called me one last time at 4:58 p.m. yesterday." Yun Ya-yu asked her virtual assistant, Dong Siu, "Were any company employees near Assistant Hong between 4:58 and 5:50 p.m.? The result was Mr. Kim Sin-gu. According to his phone's location, he was currently at home. Asen tried calling Professor Kim, but there was no answer, so the three of them rushed off. Rewinding to 4:49 p.m. yesterday, Professor Kim Sin-gu received a message in a group chat. Director Ya-yu paid the ransom. Assistant Hong arrived at his house and heard the professor shout excitedly, causing her to drop the documents she was carrying. Professor Kim saw Assistant Hong through his window. He opened the door slightly, and she said, "I just brought some things from the office for you, Professor." Professor Kim explained, "That shouting was from the TV. Leave them there, I'll clean it up." Professor Kim then noticed a retirement gift from Assistant Hong. Assistant Hong checked the group chat and learned that Director Yun Ja-yu had paid the ransom to the hackers. Entering the elevator, she recalled hearing the shout, "Success, 80 billion won." Getting into her car, she thought about Professor Kim's unusual behavior and called to speak with Chief Asen, who said he would call her back. Suddenly, Professor Kim appeared, asking, "What's wrong?" He was later present at the hospital emergency room, trying to avoid being seen by Chief Asen. He looked at Assistant Hong, remembering pushing her car into the river, causing her current state. He blamed her. "You showed up at my house at the worst possible time. I couldn't risk being exposed. It took me so long to trick that woman. Finally, that money is mine. I even took the black box from the car." The professor then began planning his escape. Now, when the three arrived and knocked on the door, Professor Kim had already fled to a distant country. He answered when Chief Asen called. Director Yun snatched the phone and demanded, "Did you hack the Research Institute to steal money?" Professor Kim called Ya-yu a murderer. "If it weren't for you, my wife could have lived a few more months." Ya-yu retorted, "You begged me to perform the surgery, and then you spread false rumors about the culture medium and ruined 20 years of my research." Professor Kim hung up and disabled his phone. Ya-yu immediately ran to the stairs and called Prime Minister Seonu Yi, "Put Kim Sin-gu on the no-fly list. But from the way he spoke, he's probably already left Korea." The Prime Minister agreed to help. Ki-woon retrieved his tools from the car and picked the lock to Professor Kim's apartment. Inside, they found that Kim had used his phone to forward calls to his hiding place. He had also used his employee ID card to mislead location tracking. Yeon Ja-yu received a notification from the Prime Minister's subordinate. Kim Sin-gu left the country for Vietnam at 9 am this morning, but disappeared upon arrival. We've notified the Vietnamese embassy to prevent him from leaving the country. Hanging up, Ya-yu recalled Professor Kim begging her to operate on his terminally ill wife. She had explained the research wasn't complete, but he insisted. She also remembered his accusation. "If it weren't for you, my wife could have lived a few more months." The words caused her a headache. Sensing her stress, Ki-woon stopped the car so Ja-yu could take in the scenery and calm down. He also offered her his jacket in the cold winter air. Back in the car, Ya-yu declared, "We have to find Professor Kim before he gets a new passport in Vietnam. Otherwise, we'll never find him." Ya-yu got in the car and instructed her virtual assistant, Jeong-soo, "Have our legal representative in Vietnam request assistance from the Vietnamese police. Send them multiple photos of Kim Sin-gu. Also, offer a 50 million won reward to any factory workers who report information about him or capture him." At that moment, Ki-woon received a message from former President Lee Mun-jae. "I've arranged the prison visit." Ki-woon immediately went to the prison to meet the man convicted of the bombing. This man had been at the Azoran battlefield with Ki-woon, teaching and caring for children in the refugee camp. Ki-woon questioned Koo about the real perpetrator. "Even soldiers like me weren't informed the president was coming. How did you know in time to plant the bomb? You weren't responsible, were you?" But the man insisted, "I did it." Ki-woon showed him a picture of a child from the refugee camp and asked, "You knew about the attack, but you still let the children inside. These are the children you raised and taught. Do you recognize the name Yeon Ja-yu?" Koo just shook his head, sobbing. Horrific memories flooded back, causing him to stand up abruptly and say, "It's over." Then he turned and walked away. Ki-woon stepped into his car, the former President Lee Mun-jae's words, "You must earn their trust," echoing in his mind. He then drove to meet a group specializing in illegal immigration. Mistaking him for a police officer, the group scattered, fleeing in all directions. Ki-woon gave chase, pursuing them relentlessly. He was led to a location where the group had apparently gathered weapons, preparing for a fight. As their leader emerged, Ki-woon announced he was only there to find someone. Seeing Ki-woon pull something from his pocket, the leader ordered his men to attack. Retreating into the shadows, Ki-woon goaded the thugs forward. He systematically took them down, one by one, finally grabbing one as a hostage and ordering him to retrieve the paper from his pocket. The leader read the paper and his aggression subsided. Releasing the hostage, Ki-woon said, "The man in this picture is Kim Sin-gu. He arrived in Vietnam this morning. Find him and tell me what identity he's using there. You have plenty of contacts in Vietnam, don't you?" The leader demanded 30 million won. Ki-woon agreed and left. The thugs immediately began their search. The next day was the 2025 year-end party at the US Embassy in South Korea. Ki-woon and his bodyguard, Ho Seung, were there to protect CEO Yeon Ja-yu. Ki-woon noticed Chairman Lee, a man he recognized from the Azoran battlefield bombing. Chairman Park of the Sangha Group congratulated Ki-woon on his new job. He, too, had been present at Azoran. Meanwhile, Ya-yu was conversing with Chairman Han, who had also been with her during the attack. Prime Minister Seonu-yi arrived and greeted his father, Chairman Seonu-jun of the Dorson Group. Chairman Seonu-jun then requested a private conversation with Yeon Ja-yu. Ki-woon, Attorney Jeong, and Ho Seung escorted her to the meeting room but remained outside. Ki-woon recalled the aftermath of the attack, rushing, injured, to apologize to President Lee Mun-jae. When the president asked about the other officer who had protected him, Ki-woon reported that he had been killed. Then, he whispered in the president's ear, "When did you tell the others about this visit?" At that moment, Chairman Seonu-jun, also President Lee Mun-jae's son-in-law, had entered. He berated Ki-woon for failing to protect his father-in-law. He raised his hand to strike Ki-woon, but his son, Seonu-yi, intervened. Just then, Ki-woon received an important text message. Meanwhile, Chairman Sianu Jun offered to buy Yun Jiayu's company, BF, for 32 trillion won. Just hand over the lab and the cell-cultured meat technology, he said. You can keep the subsidiaries. From now on, you can just spend money and enjoy life. As you know, the cultured meat market is about to explode. Your company will face fierce competition. He continued, my Dorson Group has faced similar challenges, but we survived because of our diverse subsidiaries. Can BF weather the coming storm? This is the perfect time to accept my offer. CEO Yun Jiayu replied, I need time to think. I'll meet with you again to give you my answer. Later, as Jiayu emerged, Attorney Jiang announced that Ki-woon had been called away on urgent business and had taken his leave. Chairman Sianu Jun also met privately with his son, the Prime Minister, and asked, Is that bodyguard protecting Yun Jiayu the same officer we met at the hospital? Why choose him to watch over her? Was it your grandfather, her grandfather, who made that decision? Sianu Yi admitted it was, but added, I don't think he's earned Director Yun's trust yet, and I think you should visit grandfather more often. He is your former father-in-law, after all. In her car, Yun Jiayu pondered the 32 trillion won offer. I could do anything I want with that money and not have to constantly meet with investors. I could just focus on my research. But why would he make such an offer when he already has everything? Back at the company, Chief Onsen reported that Assistant Hong had regained consciousness. Yun Jiayu asked him, could we sell the artificial meat technology without them knowing about our other assets? Chairman Sianu Jun made this offer. He'll uncover our intangible assets soon, won't he? When Onsen asked, what are his conditions? Jiayu received a photo of Professor Kim on her phone. The message stated he had flown to Cambodia and obtained a Thai passport under the name Somtrai Tran. Yun Jiayu immediately called Attorney Jiang to verify if Professor Kim was indeed in Cambodia under that alias. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Sianu Yi also received a report that Professor Kim was flying from Cambodia to France under the name Somtrai Tran. Professor Kim, now on the plane, was enjoying himself like royalty. But when his son repeatedly messaged him, his arm went limp. Ki-woon reported back to Jiayu, I was lucky to find information on Professor Kim. Jiayu gave Ki-woon an employee ID card to access the company's AI assistant, Jiang-su. But sensing her continued suspicion, Ki-woon asked, did I do something wrong? Jiayu responded, I don't believe you were just lucky to have Professor Kim's photo. You appeared right after the accident, just when I was looking for a bodyguard. You just left Sangha Group. You also uncovered the fake citizen attack on the company. And you were at Azuran with me. Now you have this photo. How can a bodyguard always have what I need? How did you get that picture? Ki-woon stepped forward, returned the ID card, and asked her to make a decision. He presented the paper with Professor Kim's picture and explained, I found brokers specializing in illegal immigration and hired them to find Professor Kim. Yun Jiayu asked, why didn't you call me so I could transfer you the money? Ki-woon replied, it didn't seem appropriate. Yun Jiayu said, I'll have Attorney Jiang reimburse you for the search. She then placed the watch containing the ID card on his wrist. At that moment, the AI assistant, Jiang-su, announced, you have a message from the director of the National Intelligence Service. Kim Sin-gu died on the flight to France. Presumed cause of death is a massive heart attack. Hearing this, Jiayu's hand trembled, and she almost dropped her coffee cup. Assistant Hong, preparing to leave the hospital, saw the news report speculating whether Yun Jiayu had harmed Professor Kim for stealing company funds. Reporters swarmed Jiayu, questioning her about Kim's death. Chairman Sianu Jun of the Dorson Group watched the news and commented, poisoning someone on a plane only happens in movies. He then entered an elevator with his 2 bodyguards. Authorities confirmed that no poison was found in Kim Sin-gu's body. The crowd protesting against BF began accusing Jiayu of poisoning Kim Sin-gu and faking a heart attack because he had reported on the contamination of the artificial meat. Attorney Jiang, seeing the protests escalating, called and advised against bringing Jiayu back to the Seoul office. Jiayu wanted to return to BF headquarters, but Ki-woon dissuaded her, pointing out it was a target for the protesters. Jiayu asked him to call Attorney Jiang to book a hotel room. That evening, however, Attorney Jiang called back, reporting that she couldn't find any vacancies. Most hotels were fully booked for the holiday season. Ki-woon then told Ho-seung to drive to his place. At Ki-woon's house, a strange man was attempting to break in, lurking near the front door. He was about to pick the lock when he heard a car approaching. Ki-woon got out to investigate and noticed an unoccupied car parked nearby. After they escorted Ya-yu inside, the intruder climbed the wall and drove away in the waiting car. Ki-woon led Ya-yu to a room where she could spend the night. When he went back outside, the other car was gone. He coordinated security positions with Ho-seung to protect Ya-yu. Inside, playing with Ki-woon's Manx cat, Ya-yu listened as he explained, "My mother named him. This is my parents' house. They're currently in America with my younger sister." Later, Ki-woon asked, "Are you really okay?" Ya-yu replied, "Yesterday, I was a murderer who killed a rancher. Today, I'm accused of poisoning someone." Ki-woon said, "You're just accelerating the world's progress, but the poisoning accusation is slander. I know you had nothing to do with whatever Professor Kim ingested. But what did you do to his wife with cancer? Did you do it for your business?" Ya-yu refused to discuss the matter. Later, Attorney Jeong arrived with a large bag. The two bodyguards opened it to reveal 2 suitcases filled with guns for Ya-yu's protection. Attorney Jeong explained, "All weapons are licensed. I'll hire more security for the neighboring houses. I'll pay the surrounding residents 10 million won a week to vacate immediately. Miss Ya-yu can stay here through the holidays, as all the hotels are booked." Ki-woon took watch on the rooftop, reviewing Ya-yu's background information sent by former President Lee. She had cut ties with her family after 2 crises. The first, when she shouldered massive debt after founding BF. The second, when her mother committed financial fraud 2 years after BF's successful launch. Ya-yu then declared she would no longer be responsible for her family's debts. Fireworks began to light up the sky, celebrating the new year. Chairman Seonu-jun, surrounded by beautiful women, called his son and complained, "Ya-yu rejected my offer. She agreed to sleep at that ex-soldier's house. How dare she?" Prime Minister Seonu-yi felt a pang of annoyance. The next morning, Seonu-yi received a photo of Ya-yu and Ki-woon together at Ki-woon's house, further fueling his displeasure. Ya-yu, in the car with Captain Seo-hui, received a call from Prime Minister Seonu-yi requesting a meeting to discuss business. Her car arrived at the Prime Minister's residence. However, as Ki-woon escorted Ya-yu inside, Prime Minister Seonu-yi emerged with his entourage and announced, "There's been a break-in at the police station armory. I need to go and assess the situation. Let's reschedule." The Prime Minister's secretary received a call reporting that numerous guns and grenades had been stolen from the police armory. Director Ya-yu's car was on its way home when a traffic officer stopped them. "We're doing road work. This street is closed," he announced. Her driver, Ho-seung, immediately rerouted, taking them down a different road that eventually led to a deserted wooded area. Ki-woon, her bodyguard, began to eye the roadwork crew with suspicion. Suddenly, a car screeched to a halt, blocking their path. As the window rolled down, gunfire erupted from within. Ho-seung slammed the car into reverse, dodging the hail of bullets from the attacking assassins. Ki-woon returned fire, his expert marksmanship taking down several of the attackers. Their car sped away, but a well-placed shot punctured a tire, sending them careening into a tree. Ki-woon exited the vehicle, continuing to eliminate the approaching assailants. He then ushered Director Yun out of the car and they fled on foot. Seo-hui, the security team leader, instructed her virtual assistant to call the police as she and Ho-seung followed. Ki-woon provided covering fire, allowing them to escape the immediate danger. The 4 of them took cover behind a cluster of rocks. The sound of gunfire triggered a flashback for Ya-yu, bringing back memories of the attack on the battlefield and the death of her sister. Ki-woon reassured her, "No one will get hurt. I'll protect you." Just as Ki-woon ran out of ammunition, smoke grenades suddenly filled the air. The assassins used the cover to press their attack. Ki-woon prepared to throw a grenade but was struck by 2 bullets, sending him collapsing to the ground. Ya-yu grabbed his gun, lifting his arm. He managed to squeeze the trigger, taking down another attacker. At that moment, Chief Onsen arrived with a SWAT team. As they swarmed the area, Ho-seung reached for a weapon but was shot in the arm. Seo Hui shakily raised her gun, only to be grabbed by an assailant, who was immediately shot down by the SWAT team. Earlier, virtual assistant Jiang Su had activated the lab's alarm system after detecting gunfire within a 2-kilometer radius. This alerted Chief Onsen, who checked the feeds from nearby cameras and located the director's car. A state-of-the-art drone arrived at the scene, live streaming the pursuit of Director Yun. It was revealed that Onsen and other company employees had deployed the smoke grenades. Ki-woon was loaded into BF Corporation's ambulance. Ya-yu, in the following car, instructed her virtual assistant Dong Siu to activate the headquarters basement. The two vehicles sped back to BF Corporation. When Ki-woon was wheeled in on a stretcher, only Onsen and Seo Hui were allowed to accompany him through a hidden door, leading to a room in the basement. They placed Ki-woon onto a futuristic machine, removing his shirt to reveal his wounds. The three stood back as they instructed Jiang Su to begin the procedure. The machine closed, displaying Ki-woon's vitals on a monitor. Assistant Hong rushed in, her voice filled with concern. "We're not ready for this. What if there's necrosis?" "Use the cultured tissue," Onsen demanded. "Consider it a clinical trial." But Yun Jia-yu declared, "This will be our first success." Meanwhile, Prime Minister Sianu Yi was leaving the police station and reporting to the president over the phone. "We apprehended 13 attackers. 8 are dead. They grabbed police-issued weapons intended for civilian protection to carry out this attack. 1 BF employee was injured. By the time paramedics arrived, he was unconscious from blood loss, not expected to survive." Back at BF Corporation, the bullets were extracted from Ki-woon's body. The process of implanting the cultured tissue began. As needles pierced his skin, the system alerted them to signs of immune rejection. At that moment, Ki-woon regained consciousness. He remembered his niece and sister boarding the plane, along with memories of the attack in Azaran. Virtual assistant Jiang Su announced, "Ki-woon's left cochlear nerve is 60% damaged." Ya-yu realized this was a result of the explosion. It was likely the reason he could no longer serve as a soldier. They all stood in stunned silence, witnessing the culmination of their research for the first time. Ki-woon's wounds began to regenerate and heal at an accelerated rate. A short while later, Yun Ya-yu received a call from the Prime Minister, inquiring about her well-being and informing her that the police would arrive within 5 minutes. Ya-yu quickly ascended, encountering Attorney Jiang. "Tell the police we'll cooperate with the investigation," Ya-yu instructed Jiang. "Our bodyguard has already been taken to the hospital." She then stepped into the elevator. Attorney Jiang, curious about the activity, especially after hearing that Director Yun had gone down to the basement, requested access to the basement blueprints from Jiang Su, but was denied due to insufficient clearance. Ya-yu entered a room and instructed Jiang Su to deny entry to everyone. She then collapsed on the floor, overwhelmed by a cacophony of strange sounds echoing in her mind. Later, she returned to the secret room and informed Onsen, "I'll be staying here tonight. The owner of my house is currently here." Later, slumped in a chair, she remembered Ki-woon's cat, alone at his apartment. Meanwhile, former President Lee Mun-jae repeatedly called Ki-woon, but received no answer. Ho Seung, his arm bandaged, left the building, bombarded by flashing cameras. A surviving attacker confessed that they were hired by a drug cartel to eliminate Yun Ja-yu. Media speculation pointed to a South American cartel that had placed a bounty on her head. It was alleged that BF Corporation had promised the cartel distribution rights in Korea in exchange for the attack, motivating them to steal police weapons and carry out the assault. While there were no fatalities at BF Corporation, some suspected that Yun orchestrated the attack herself as a diversionary tactic after being implicated in Professor Kim's poisoning. Prime Minister Sianu Yi watched the news report and received a call from his father, Chairman Sianu Jun. "If BF saves that former soldier, it's time we make our move. Thanks to your actions, we can just sit back and watch the show unfold now." "I'm a politician," the Prime Minister retorted. "I wouldn't orchestrate such a blatant attack. Do you think I ordered a hit on Ja-yu to see what secrets she's hiding?" The next day, Yun Ja-yu held a meeting with branch leaders from around the world. They discussed strategies for penetrating difficult markets with their cultured meat product. Following the meeting, Onsen descended to the secret room, gazing at Ki-woon's once injured ear. A security detail escorted Ja-yu to Ki-woon's apartment. Ho-seung, already there, had swept the apartment for security threats. Ya-yu entered to check on Man-si, the cat, finding his area immaculately clean. Ki-woon had left ample food and water, enough for several days. Outside, Attorney Jeong and Ho-seung wondered about Ki-woon's whereabouts. Ki-woon awoke inside the futuristic machine, Onsen asleep at a nearby table. He pressed a button, and the machine opened. He examined the area where the bullets had been removed. He stepped out and noticed a large, red, constantly churning water tank, filled with bags of blood. Continuing his exploration, he discovered a room filled with developing organs, preserved in glass containers. Finally, Ki-woon touched his healed wounds, pulling out the extracted bullet and marveling at his near-complete recovery. Afterward, Ki-woon called Director Ja-yu and asked, "You removed the bullet, right? But why don't I see any wounds? Did you put these things in my body? Are they pig organs?" Yun Ya-yu immediately replied, "They're not pig organs, and there were no transplants." Ki-woon realized that the organs here were human. On approached and asked Ki-woon to leave. However, Ki-woon continued to question Ya-yu. "You're cultivating human organs in this lab, so that's why you're afraid of the government finding out." Ki-woon then went to the secret room to retrieve his belongings and stepped outside. He walked down the street, removing the camera attached to his shirt button. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his ear from the ringing of his phone. Ki-woon met with former President Lee Mun-jae and found Prime Minister Seonu-yi present. Seonu-yi was surprised to see Ki-woon unharmed and safe. He then announced, "My grandfather is sleeping. He had insomnia last night. I received a report that a bodyguard was seriously injured. Looks like you recovered quickly." Prime Minister Seonu-yi asked Ki-woon to report to his grandfather that no other perpetrators of the past bombing were found. At this time, Ki-woon was continuously bothered by the subtle sounds that Prime Minister Seonu-yi made. The Prime Minister stated, "Your friend, the one in prison, is the real culprit behind the bombing. It's because of your influence that my grandfather doesn't believe the investigation results." Ki-woon turned to leave, but then turned back and asserted, "What if I find the real culprit, and it's someone else?" Seonu-yi promised, "If you bring sufficient evidence, I'll show you how I deal with those who blew up my grandfather's presidency." Ki-woon then left. He went outside and proceeded to check his hearing again. He had no issues with his right ear, but his left ear throbbed with pain when he heard the phone ring. At this time, Chairman Seonu-jun recalled an incident from 10 years prior. He had met an NBA player and dreamt of having a physique like his. The player had said, "When youth passes, my body will age too." However, Chairman Seonu-jun, at that time, wished for immortality to enjoy life as one of the richest men in the world. He resolved, "I'll use money to achieve that." Now, Seonu-jun vowed to replace everything, from his teeth and skin to his aging organs, to live forever. Later, Seonu-yi came and told his father, "It seems Ki-woon's injuries weren't deep, which is why he recovered so quickly." His father replied, "We need to cut him open to see what implants he's received. I want to see how BF's technology compares to the cloning technology we're researching. I can't wait any longer. I'm about to turn 70. He's a golden goose right now, so we need to catch him. Come to think of it, we should thank that South American gang. Thanks to them, Yun Ya-yu's bodyguard was injured, and we learned about this." Seonu-yi listened without much interest. Director Yun returned to headquarters, and Ki-woon appeared as well. Lawyer Jeong and Ho-seung were surprised by his recovery. Director Onsen began describing the procedures performed on Ki-woon to address the excessive blood loss, heal the open wound, and implant cellular fibers into his broken rib. However, he emphasized the need for further monitoring for side effects. Ki-woon then asked, "Why did you mess with my ear?" Onsen played an extremely loud sound, but Ki-woon seemed unaffected. However, when he played a different frequency, only Ki-woon heard it and reacted. Onsen explained, "This is a 30,000 Hz frequency. Humans can't hear it. I implanted a chip in your ear for testing, but I can remove it anytime." Yun Ya-yu disagreed, explaining to Ki-woon, "This is an electronic implant we're developing. It can heal the ear injury you sustained. Why didn't you treat it before? Ki-woon replied, if I had, I might not have been able to walk normally. I didn't want to be a burden to my family, so I didn't do it. And now, without this noise-canceling device, even small sounds feel like explosions? How is this considered treatment? Ki-woon grabbed on San. When Yeon Ja-yu intervened, Ki-woon experienced a bout of deafness and had to put the noise-canceling device back in his ear. Ya-yu demanded on San immediately lower the sound level for Ki-woon. Ya-yu continued to persuade him, accept the treatment. You promised me no one would get hurt. You have to keep your promise. Ki-woon retorted, stop treating me like cultured meat. How much money do you need to be satisfied? Ki-woon then left. Outside, he encountered Ho-seung, who repeatedly asked, what happened to you? But Ki-woon just brushed him off and continued walking. Ho-seung tried to open a door but couldn't. Meanwhile, director Yeon Ja-yu addressed 3 key members of her secret research project, confirming, we have our first successful case of muscle tissue cultivation. But I hope everyone will refrain from boasting about this externally as it's still under observation. Later, Yeon Ja-yu requested a private conversation with Assistant Hong. She brought up Professor Kim's wife's failed surgery. We all tried our best to apply the new technology to save her, but it wasn't effective. Professor Kim said it was alright, everyone did their best. Honey, let's go home. I didn't realize he was suppressing his anger and plotting revenge. Assistant Hong added, he begged you to perform that surgery. Ya-yu wondered, could Kim Sin-gu have taken his own life on the plane? He'd completed his revenge plan. Did you notice any unusual event that changed him? Assistant Hong recalled, early last year, sometime after his wife passed, Kim Sin-gu left work on a Wednesday afternoon and told me he was going to a meeting. It was a support group for families who lost loved ones to cancer. I think those weekly meetings helped him. But not long after, he stopped going, saying everyone there was too weak. Assistant Hong then left and met lawyer Jeong. The lawyer congratulated her. Congratulations, you're about to take over Professor Kim's position. If the research in the basement succeeds, your future will be bright. Assistant Hong replied, I was afraid I'd be fired since the basement has nothing to do with me. But lawyer Jeong reassured her, the company always needs a legal expert. Then she left. Yeon Ja-yu called Chief Seo Hui, find the address of the patient support center Kim Sin-gu frequented every Wednesday afternoon and give it to bodyguard Ho-seung. Also, equip my bodyguards with our sensor suits. Yeon Ja-yu left her office and saw Ki-woon still on duty. She instructed, Ki-woon, go see Chief Seo Hui for an address. It's where Kim Sin-gu met with the cancer patient family group. Go there and investigate, see if you can find any information. Bodyguard Ho-seung met with Chief Seo Hui and was asked to choose a suit. As Seo Hui prepared to hand him the address, Ki-woon entered and announced, the director told me to come here for the address. He then snatched the paper. Chief Seo Hui began explaining the features of the sensor suits. They can withstand most blades and are bulletproof. Fire won't affect them either, as they're made of heat-absorbing carbon fiber. Afterward, both bodyguards were issued these suits for their duties. Ho-seung asked Ki-woon to tell him about the piece of paper with the address, but Ki-woon remained silent. Ho-seung pulled Ki-woon aside and told his colleague to stop being so arrogant. Then, both of them dropped their bags. Team leader Seo Hui, seeing the 2 company bodyguards fighting, ran out to intervene but immediately received a kick to the leg. At that moment, both received a notification that Director Yeon was about to leave. The 2 bodyguards quickly picked up their suits and made up, ready to continue working side by side. Director Yeon got into the car, annoyed to see her bodyguards had been fighting. Once everyone was in the vehicle, Ho-seung, feeling the tension, said to lawyer Jeong, could I go to the police station later? The director doesn't have anything scheduled. Yeon Ja-yu interrupted and requested, take me to Prime Minister Seon-ui. Just then, Ki-woon received a text message from former President Lee Mun-ju. After Ja-yu went inside to meet the Prime Minister, Ki-woon announced he needed to go to the hospital to have an injury checked. Ya-yu went upstairs and found the Prime Minister setting up a tent indoors, as if camping. Seon-ui stepped out and said, whenever I want to be alone, I come here. Then, the two sat and talked as if they were on a camping trip together. While the Prime Minister appeared eager to chat, Director Jia Yu maintained a cold, impassive expression. Xianu Yi brought up the South American gang that had orchestrated the attack on Ya Yu. The director questioned, "How could a gang on the other side of the world act with such perfect timing? As if someone here was updating them. They must have also spread the rumor that I was the one behind the shooting." Afterward, Yun Ya-yu stood up and excused herself. At the hospital, as former President Lee Mun-jae was being wheeled into a room, Ki-woon, dressed in a doctor's coat, entered. Everyone else left so Ki-woon could speak with Lee Mun-jae privately. Ki-woon asked, "Why was I chosen to work at BF out of so many applicants? Did you have anything to do with it? Or was it your son-in-law?" The former president replied, "My daughter is divorced from him." Ki-woon then asked, "Was it Prime Minister Xianu Yi then?" The former president said, "It was my own decision." Ki-woon requested, "Don't tell Prime Minister Xianu Yi that I came to see you. Someone might have instigated Professor Kim to hack the lab so I could successfully join BF, and then dealt with Professor Kim to cover their tracks." Later, as Director Yun Ja-yu stepped out of the gate, bodyguard Ki-woon arrived just in time. At that moment, Chairman Xianu Jun called his son and scolded him. "You dared to invite Director Yun Ja-yu to a private meeting, just the two of you? She's the woman who slept with her bodyguard, you know?" Xianu Yi told his father, "Stop interfering in my personal life." Then he hung up. Chairman Xianu Jun recalled his son's annoyed expression at the year-end party when he saw Yun Ja-yu talking to another man. It made him very suspicious. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister had to take some medication before continuing on his way. That evening, while at Ki-woon's house, Yun Ja-yu heard footsteps outside. This made her incredibly scared. When she opened the door, she realized it was just Ki-woon, the bodyguard, which brought a sigh of relief. At this time, Ki-woon told Ya-yu about the story An-san had shared with him that morning. An-san said that, back when he was a student, he and she had witnessed the brutal handling of pigs to suppress the African swine fever outbreak. Professor Kim was the one who had taken them there to survey the epidemiological situation. After witnessing this event, Ya-yu decided to leave the university. 2 semesters later, she returned, and the first thing she said to An-san was that she wanted to make humans the perfect dominant species. She didn't want humans to continue to depend on animals and plants for survival anymore. "We have to cut off the old food chain and start a new source of food. People might think we're doing this just for money. But if it were just for money, she would have sold the company to live a comfortable life a long time ago. And you just accused her of that, even though she just saved your life." At this point, Yun Ja-yu revealed another reason why she founded BF. "I witnessed my twin sister suffering in a hospital bed from a variant of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. She had almost completely lost her brain function. After cremating my sister, I wished I hadn't. If I had buried her, maybe I could have dug her up now and grafted her organs back on." After talking for a while, Ki-woon asked, "So what is your ultimate goal in founding BF? Do you want to make humans immortal by replacing their failing organs?" Yun Ya-yu shook her head. "Humans can't live forever. But if there's a way to help them not feel pain until their very last moment, then that's what I want to achieve. That's why I've been working hard to perfect this cutting-edge technology. Then, even poor people can use this technology because the price will become cheaper and cheaper." After that, Ki-woon thanked Yun Ja-yu for saving his life. The CEO also responded with thanks for his efforts to protect her. The next morning, Ho-seung and Ki-woon drove to the Social Welfare Center. This was where Professor Kim often went to meet people who had lost loved ones to cancer. Ho-seung pretended to be Professor Kim's real son, recently returned from America to mourn his father. He introduced the person with him as his uncle to the manager. Ho-seung tried to ask about those who were close to Professor Kim when he came to attend the meetings. The manager said that Professor Kim often talked to a man with a scar on his face. When Ho-seung asked for this man's phone number, the manager refused to disclose it. At this point, Ki-woon raised his voice to blame Ho-seung. "Why didn't you visit your father more often when he was alive?" Ho-seung also angrily retorted, "What about you? You lived near my father, but you rarely paid attention to him." Then, he knelt down and pleaded. "Please tell me the contact information of that man. I want to understand more about my father's feelings." Finally, they obtained the man's address. His name was Park Sang-min. They went to the address provided, but it turned out to be a shipping company. When asked about Park Sang-min, an employee said that there was no one by that name here. As they stepped outside, Ki-woon noticed a suspicious car parked nearby. He immediately told Ho-seung to get in the car and said, "I've seen that black car parked in front of my house. The night director Yun Ya-yu came to my house." At that moment, Park Sang-min got into his car. Ki-woon observed this, and they both immediately gave chase. Reaching an intersection, Park Sang-min realized he was being followed, so he abruptly changed direction and sped away. A traffic officer, noticing the two vehicles exceeding the speed limit, immediately joined the pursuit. Park Sang-min quickly swerved, turning into an alleyway. Ki-woon and Ho-seung stayed right on his tail. However, when blocked by a delivery truck, Park Sang-min jumped out of his car and fled on foot. The two bodyguards immediately split up to pursue him. A moment later, he unexpectedly attacked Ho-seung. However, Ho-seung quickly subdued him, throwing him to the ground. At that point, Park Sang-min pulled out a knife and began to fight, but he was no match for the modern armor Ho-seung was wearing. For a fair fight, Ho-seung decided to remove his jacket. He repeatedly restrained Park Sang-min, but unfortunately, he was stabbed in the side, causing him to collapse. Ki-woon frantically searched for his partner, removed his noise-canceling device, and heard Park Sang-min taunting. "A corporate bodyguard can't even defeat a hired gun like me." Just then, Ki-woon arrived and saw Ho-seung lying on the ground, barely alive. Before losing consciousness, he managed to whisper, "The scar." Ki-woon was about to pursue Park Sang-min, but suddenly, patrol officers appeared and restrained him. Despite Ki-woon's attempts to explain that the real perpetrator was still nearby, the police continued to arrest him. Unexpectedly, the cells in Ki-woon's body began to surge, allowing him to break the handcuffs and shove one of the officers away. But immediately, Ki-woon caught the officer to prevent him from falling. Afterward, he raised his hands in surrender, as his noise-canceling device fell to the ground. In another development, Attorney Jeong reported to Director Yun Ya-yu. "One of our bodyguards is dead. Another was arrested at the scene, suspected of murder." Subsequently, Attorney Jeong got into her car and called Chairman Seonu-jun, informing him, "The bodyguard who died wasn't Ki-woon. Have you been able to contact Park Sang-min?" The chairman immediately ordered his subordinates, "Find him at all costs." Attorney Jeong continued, saying, "I have to run. Sooner or later, Yun Ya-yu will find out that I was the one who tipped off the perpetrator about the bodyguard's movements." However, Chairman Seonu-jun reassured her, "Just stay put. She has no evidence to suspect you. Just keep me updated." Now, Park Sang-min is also dousing the vehicle that just arrived at the scene with gasoline, and then blowing up the house containing the car. While he's preparing all his belongings to flee, he receives a phone call from Chairman Seonu-jun, but he doesn't answer. It turns out the scar on his face was just a disguise. When Chairman Seonu-jun's bodyguards arrive to track him down, he's already disguised himself as a woman and successfully escapes. Immediately, Chairman Seonu-jun calls his son and demands, "Use your power as Prime Minister to find him for me, before the police catch him and start investigating." Prime Minister Seonu-yi immediately calls and demands his subordinate connect him to the police chief. It's then that he learns that the police are only focused on arresting the bodyguard who was with the victim, and they've let the real criminal get away. After that, the police send Seonu-yi a video showing Ki-woon hurling a police officer into the air. The Prime Minister seems amused and whispers, "Ya-yu, you've made my childhood dream come true." Inside the prison, Ki-woon tries to remember why someone knew she had gone to the welfare center. She recalls that, this morning, while she was in the restroom, Ho-seung texted her, inviting her to the welfare center because the director wasn't scheduled to go anywhere. He also frequently asked Lawyer Jeong about Director Yun Ja-yu's schedule. Afterward, the police escort Ki-woon out to meet with Director Yun Ja-yu. Everyone leaves so the two of them can talk privately. Yun Ya-yu says, We couldn't save Ho Seung this time. I shouldn't have sent you two there. You're no longer a suspect in the murder, but because you assaulted a police officer, you can't be released yet. Ki-woon replies. Suddenly, my body felt like it was burning up. I don't even know why I was so strong. After that, they both start piecing together the information. The perpetrator disguised himself as a member of the cancer support group and left a fake address. But when Ki-woon invited Ho Seung to go to the welfare center, only the two of them were there. No one else could have heard them. Yun Ya-yu says, Assistant Hong told me about that cancer center, and Seo Huey found the welfare center address. But if Assistant Hong were a spy, she wouldn't have told me about that center. So, that only leaves team leader Seo Huey as a suspect. Ki-woon adds, I overheard the perpetrator admitting that he was a hired gun. Someone hired him to approach Kim Sin-gu to attack BF. This also shows that Kim Sin-gu was murdered, and didn't die of heart failure. After that, as Ya-yu is leaving, Ki-woon asks permission to tell the director something. After whispering in Ya-yu's ear, Ki-woon returns to her cell. The director puts on her glasses. At that moment, the police chief arrives and invites Yun Ja-yu to talk in his office. The police show Ja-yu images of the perpetrator's vehicle. All these images are sent back to Division Chief On-san. On-san immediately orders virtual assistant Jeong-soo to track the movements of this black car before Ho Seung died. Soon after, images show the perpetrator sitting in the car. After compiling all the footage, his face gradually appears on the screen, and his disguise is removed. Afterward, his identification information was also listed. Ya-yu then requested to see images of the victim at the scene. The police commissioner stated that the police were trying to locate the vehicle he had driven away in. On-san immediately instructed the AI assistant to search for any vehicles that had exploded or fallen into the water after 11 am today. As Ya-yu was leaving, On-san reported that a vehicle had been found on fire at a repair shop. Upon hearing this, Ya-yu immediately provided the police with the address where the fire had occurred. The police commissioner was very surprised by the information provided by Director Yun Ya-yu. Subsequently, the police also received a picture of the actual perpetrator sent by Ya-yu's bodyguard. Following that, the police returned Ki-woon's belongings and allowed him to leave. He called Director Ya-yu but discovered that she wasn't the one who had intervened to get him released. Just then, a group of bodyguards appeared and invited Ki-woon into a vehicle. Meanwhile, Ya-yu ordered the AI assistant to pinpoint Ki-woon's location. Ki-woon was taken to a room where Prime Minister Seonu-yi also appeared. He began testing Ki-woon's supernatural abilities by unexpectedly brandishing a knife to test the young man's reflexes, while simultaneously asking, "Did you throw the police officer into the air?" Ki-woon explained, "It's all thanks to the sensor suit BF gave me. It makes the wearer stronger." Then, he continued, "Do you know someone named Ku? His family left the Azoran battlefield with special immigration visas immediately after the explosion. They're enjoying a comfortable life abroad. You previously concluded that the terrorist perpetrator had been apprehended, but how could a terrorist's family obtain visas to leave? I wonder, did you conspire to assassinate former President Lee Mun-jae? He was planning to shut down BF, a company you deeply care about. If it wasn't you, then perhaps it was someone higher than you and not related to the president by blood." Chairman Seonu-jun divorcing his wife immediately after the explosion in Azoran. Is that too much of a coincidence? Seonu-yi, enraged, immediately attacked Ki-woon, but couldn't do anything to the bodyguard. Ki-woon then removed the sensor suit to fight the Prime Minister fairly. During the struggle, he accidentally tore Seonu-yi's nose, causing blood to gush out. Seonu-yi quickly tried to stop the bleeding and took medication. Ki-woon observed this and realized he had hemophilia. After the wound was temporarily controlled, Seonu-yi gritted his teeth and ordered, "Get out!" Director Yun went forward to meet with the Prime Minister, only to see Ki-woon exiting, along with the scene of destruction inside. Ki-woon then also left so the two of them could speak privately. Seonu-yi asked, "Did you rush here to protect a company secret? You've found a way to extend lifespan and succeeded in cultivating artificial organs, haven't you?" Yun Ya-yu replied, "That's right, I've succeeded. If you want to see the results, then amend the bioethics laws so BF can commercialize human organ transplants. Humanity won't have to suffer anymore. The Prime Minister expressed displeasure with this action and said, "This can't be applied to all of humanity. People will continue to reproduce, but natural resources are limited." However, Yun Ya-yu declared, "I will create an equal future for everyone. Do you think only the high and mighty like you shouldn't have to experience illness and death?" Xianu Yi immediately countered, "Let's say buying organs becomes as cheap as buying medicine and people can live for centuries. The poor will only become poorer. We'd just be prolonging their suffering, and the rich like us would have to bear their wrath." At this time, Ki-woon could also hear the conversation. Yun Ya-yu said, "If everyone achieves it, then that's the evolution of humanity. But if only a select few enjoy it, then you'll become a mutant." Xianu Yi gave a faint smile. "I don't mind becoming a mutant. So, I volunteer to be your next test subject. Or, I'll dissect the person considered your first success. I have the right to confiscate all related evidence and BF's technology. Take this last chance, or you'll lose everything and regret it." Ya-yu coldly replied, "Now you're finally revealing your true colors." She decisively walked out. The Prime Minister immediately made a phone call, ordering his bodyguards to do something. Ya-yu went outside and requested to drive the car herself. Then, she asserted that Attorney Jeong was the spy. Earlier, Ki-woon had whispered something in Ja-yu's ear. Perhaps Attorney Jeong also knew about her visit to the welfare center. Hoa received a message from Ja-yu informing her that the traitor was Attorney Jeong. At this time, An-san was also reviewing the camera footage and discovered that Ho-seung had revealed the visit to the welfare center to Attorney Jeong. An-san immediately called the lawyer, informing her that they'd found where the culprit was hiding. The lawyer hurriedly went into the restroom and texted someone saved as Engineer Sis. At this time, Assistant Hong burst in, kicked down the door, and confiscated her phone, but couldn't find who she'd contacted. Then, she was interrogated by 4 people from the group. An-san asked, "You called the culprit engineer? Who were you texting so urgently?" The lawyer immediately turned to blame Director Huey. "You're the one who told me to give up being a lawyer to come work here. If you're so capable, report it to the police." Yun Ya-yu coldly asked, "Are you Xianu Jun's or Xianu Yi's secret mistress?" The lawyer immediately feigned tears. "I'm being framed. You're illegally detaining someone. Don't forget, I'm a lawyer." Ki-woon immediately stopped Ya-yu from hitting her, asking, "You put me on the interview list to be Director Yun Ja-yu's bodyguard. Xianu Yi sent me here not to investigate who hurt his grandfather, but to exploit his disabled grandfather to swallow BF whole. But I'm guessing he didn't plan on protecting his own spy." Ya-yu coldly asked, "Who killed Ho-seung, ultimately? How long have you been working for him?" The lawyer continuously begged, her voice trembling, "Director, please save me." Ya-yu also stopped Ki-woon from continuing, but the lawyer quickly spoke up. Ki-woon just admitted that Xianu Yi sent him. He's the spy. Seo Huey then commanded the AI assistant, "Tie her up." Meanwhile, Ya-yu demanded an explanation from Ki-woon. At that moment, Prime Minister Xianu Yi's bodyguard was mobilizing a team of hackers to infiltrate BF's security system. Ki-woon admitted, "I came here to find out if you were behind the attack in Azoran in January of 2024. Ya-yu then recalled Ki-woon being in Xianu Yi's room. She suspected the two of them were colluding. "What did you reveal to him? You're the worst?" Ki-woon hurriedly explained, "I'm not colluding with Xianu Yi. Before, I didn't know what pain you'd experienced or what your dreams were. Me becoming your bodyguard wasn't accidental, it was intentional. But I didn't know anything about the ransomware. The Prime Minister might have known I had knowledge about it and dragged me into his plan, but I never gave him any information. I only have one goal: to find out the truth about my teammates' deaths. Did they sacrifice themselves at the hands of someone in this country? But I haven't found any leads. Can you give me one last chance to catch the real killer of Ho-seung? I'll go back to the welfare center to investigate." Yun Ya-yu coldly declared, "You're fired, effective immediately." Then, she walked away. An-san and Seo Huey began attaching a device to the lawyer's head to read her thoughts. Jiang noticed she kept thinking about Ho Seung's murder and the death of the owner of the cattle farm. But she tried to resist thinking about it. As Seo Hui approached, she suddenly bit his hand. At that moment, the memory of the man who fell onto Director Yun's car became clearer. Yun Jia turned back, and the lawyer Jiang frantically threatened, "You're torturing me, I'm calling the police." But Ya calmly replied, "I already reported you missing to the police. You're a spy and tried to escape from BF. Everyone will soon find out that Chairman Sianu Jun's family planted you in my company to be a spy. You also know that this building is very complex and has many freezers. Feed her 3 meals a day, but absolutely do not let her die before she tells us everything." On-san followed Ya, asking about the other spy. Ya softly replied, "Ki-woon came here to find out if I was behind the attack in Azoran back then." At that moment, Ki-woon had gone to the welfare center to meet the owner of the place. In the evening, Ya returned to Ki-woon's house and saw a man, a real estate agent, approach and ask, "Has this house already been sold?" Ya entered the house and packed all of her belongings. Then, she remembered overhearing a conversation between Ki-woon and Ho Seung a few days ago. It was then that she learned that Ki-woon had sold this house to pay for his niece's tuition, a girl in elementary school in America. After that, Yun Jia sat and talked with the two guys, telling them, "Back in the day, I really wanted to study abroad, but my family could only afford to send one person." Ki-woon also shared, "My granddaughter is allergic to milk. When we were in Korea, she had to go to the emergency room countless times because almost all food and drinks contained milk ingredients. One interesting thing about America is that people there have all kinds of allergies. One of her classmates is even allergic to water. Since coming to America, my granddaughter hasn't had to go to the even once, so I have to do everything I can to help her stay in this country." Then, Ho Seung expressed his dream. "I want to have a family and kids." Yun Ya whispered to herself, "He's only 26 years old. What about his girlfriend?" Onsen went to Ho Seung's funeral and asked Ki-woon, "Does Director Yun really seem like a terrorist?" As the team leader walked away, Ki-woon said, "Kim Sin-gu has been brainwashed by the person who killed Ho Seung. For a short time, the owner of the welfare center told me that Kim Sin-gu only attended the meetings 2 or 3 times. The guy was always trying to talk to him. After that, the two of them met privately at cafes and didn't attend the group meetings anymore." Onsen said, "Lawyer Jiang must have told the killer that he could meet Professor Kim at the welfare center. He was so cruel that he burned down an entire block just to incinerate the car, instead of doing it in an open field. Have you ever wondered how they managed to get so much high explosives so quickly? Back in Azoran, Director Yun Ya and I suspected the explosion was caused by a professional assassin, not an extremist." Afterward, Onsen went inside to pay his respects to Ho Seung. The next day, Onsen went into the lab and remembered where he had seen the woman who appeared in Lawyer Jiang's thoughts. The team leader came in, continuing to wear his glasses to observe the images appearing in her mind. Onsen brought porridge to spoon-feed Lawyer Jiang, but she stubbornly kept her mouth shut. Then she started using cunning words to seduce Onsen. "I swear I tried to hide my feelings every time I worked with you. But you were always looking only towards Director Yun. Can't you see how I feel about you?" But the team leader kept pressing. "Who killed Professor Kim? Where is he? What information did you leak to the Dorson group?" At this point, Lawyer Jiang was constantly struggling, trying to explain everything away. Afraid he would be swayed, Onsen put down the tray of porridge and went outside. A little later, the lawyer tried to take the spoon that Onsen had left, trying to turn it into a sharp weapon. Meanwhile, Director Yun Ya returned to the company, remembering the warning that Prime Minister Sianu Yi had given her. "You will lose everything." Ya immediately asked her AI assistant to list the company value of Dorson and BF. When she saw that her BF company was worth less than 1/5 of the value that the Dorson group possessed, Ya decided she had to make a decisive move to avoid being swallowed by the corporation. The next day, numerous employees of BF Corporation began driving to work. These vehicles dispersed to various locations to prepare for their assignment. As a result, numerous television broadcasts were established across the country. That evening, images of director Yun Ya-yu appeared frequently everywhere. Ya-yu announced, "Our company, BF Corporation, has been conducting a secret project. Currently, in this year of 2025, we have successfully cultured muscle fibers, bone cells, blood, along with organs such as the heart, liver, kidneys, lungs, pancreas, stomach, and small intestine. In essence, all organs within the human body, except for the brain, have been regenerated. However, we are seeking volunteers to conduct clinical trials. Participants will be individuals suffering from terminal cancer or intractable diseases. The initial phase will consist of 60 patients, and subsequent phases will include 150 patients." However, Director Ya-yu also revealed a painful truth. 2 years ago, we conducted a clinical trial on a terminal cancer patient, but it failed. Therefore, this time, I will volunteer to be the first test subject. Upon hearing this news, Owen was furious and rushed to find Ya-yu. The director insisted on replacing all the organs in her body to test BF's cell culture technology. This is considered the highest pinnacle of achievement that modern humans can attain. The former president, after watching this address, unconsciously reached down and touched his missing legs. Meanwhile, Director Ya-yu continued to promise a world free from disease. "BF and I will be waiting for those who are willing to join us in changing humanity." However, shortly thereafter, Prime Minister Sianu Yi spoke on the media to refute Director Yun Ja-yu's statement. "BF is using the health of the people as bait. This is merely a marketing ploy to advertise their product. The government will intervene and will not allow any private company to use the lives of the people for experimentation. I hope Yun Ya-yu will not attempt to profit from the lives of the people any longer. She should repent and offer a sincere apology to the public." Meanwhile, Department Head Onsen drove to find Ya-yu and suddenly remembered the woman who had appeared in Attorney Jiang's thoughts. She was the family member of the owner of the livestock farm, the person who had fallen onto the roof of Ya-yu's car. Realizing this, Onsen immediately requested the AI assistant Jiang-su to find the address of that man's farm immediately. Ki-woon approached Mr. Lee Mun-jae and questioned the former president. "Even though your visit back then seemed impromptu, you must have planned it beforehand. Did you ever tell your daughter about it? Since Director Yun wasn't behind the bombing back then, I want to move on to my next target. I want to meet your daughter, or rather, the ex-wife of Chairman Sianu Jun." The former president immediately told Ki-woon to leave. The young man walked out but pretended to sit down to eavesdrop on Mr. Lee Mun-jae's phone call. Afterward, Ki-woon searched for images of Chairman Sianu Jun's ex-wife, then cut off the car carrying the woman. CH Gun got out of his car and said to Sianu Yi's mother, "I want to talk to you about a request from the Prime Minister." The lady lowered her car window, and Ki-woon was allowed into the vehicle. He asked, "Back then, your father must have told you he was going to visit the Azorin battlefield. You probably inadvertently told your ex-husband. But that seemingly small action cost countless lives. Did you know what your husband was doing? Which is why you divorced him, isn't it?" The lady immediately retorted, "That's not true. My son is not at fault. Are you behind this?" Ki-woon then asked the lady to make a phone call to verify. The lady called her son and asked, "Did you send him to see me?" Prime Minister Sianu Yi responded, "Just do whatever makes you feel at peace, Mom. Just tell the truth. The ministers are waiting for me, so I'll call you back later." Previously, the lady had really wanted to divorce Chairman Sianu Jun because of his philandering. She tried to gather evidence of her husband's affairs but couldn't find anything conclusive. One day, while the chairman was in the bathroom, she secretly looked at his phone and saw that he had searched for information about a type of explosive. After her father was injured in the explosion, the lady asked her husband about it. However, he called her crazy and insisted, "I only researched that explosive because it injured your father." But the wife retorted, "I saw your search history before my father was hurt. I was looking for evidence of your affairs, so I saw it." The chairman angrily shouted, "What chairman doesn't have affairs? You're just a regular housewife like everyone else. If you have proof that I caused the explosion, then show it to me." Afterward, the lady told her son, Sianu Yi, "I think your father was the one behind it." Now, the lady recounted this story to Ki-woon over the phone. but she said she couldn't remember if she had seen the search history before or after the bombing. Ki-woon then went to the lady's car, got in, and asked, "After your father lost his legs, you still had the mind to look at your husband's phone? Are you afraid your son will become a mass murderer?" Very few people know about that explosive. Only two types of people would search for information about it: someone who prevents terrorism, and someone who wants to cause it. At this point, the lady confirmed that she had seen the search history before her father was injured on the Azoran battlefield. As he left the car, Ki-woon continued to ask, "Have you told your son about this?" The lady replied, "He doesn't believe me. My Seonu-yi has nothing to do with his father's affairs." Afterward, the lady called former President Lee Mun-jae and said, "I'm sorry, I really did know everything." Hearing this, Mr. Lee Mun-jae collapsed. Chief Onsen arrived with a box of fruit, searching for the deceased farm owner's sister. Yayu, the aunt, was by her car, and when Onsen introduced himself as being from BF, she visibly bristled and demanded he leave. As she started to call the police, Onsen calmly said, "One of my company's employees was murdered. I believe the perpetrator may have met you." Hearing this, the aunt opened the car door and stated firmly, "I'm not that kind of person." Onsen showed her a picture of lawyer Jeong, but she didn't recognize him. However, when she saw the picture of Park Sang-min, she identified him as our pastor. When Onsen asserted that this man was the killer, the woman was speechless, her mouth agape. Afterward, Onsen went to the pastor's house to investigate. Prime Minister Seonu-yi visited his grandfather in the hospital. His mother said, "I haven't told Grandpa that I told you about your father's secret, so don't mention it to him, okay?" Then, Seonu-yi went in to see his grandfather. As the former president was given pain medication, Lee Mun-jae hallucinated and mistook Seonu-yi for Ki-woon. He said, "Cover it up, Captain Yu Ki-woon. You should rest. The more you dig, the dirtier it will get, so just drop it." How would the boy feel if he knew what his father did? His mother must have suffered terribly because of this. "I just want to close my eyes in peace." Seonu-yi pressed him to find the person who took his legs and everything else from him. When his grandfather closed his eyes to rest, Seonu-yi shed a tear and said, "I'm sorry." Afterward, he comforted his mother before leaving. Ki-woon went to visit the prisoner, Kerr, but he refused to see him. Ki-woon then asked a guard to give him a piece of paper. When Kerr opened it, it read, "I know who you should be afraid of." After reading it, he agreed to see Ki-woon. Ki-woon said, "You only learned about the bombing after it happened, just like us. You suffered just like we did. But after returning home, you came back that night and raised your hand, admitting, 'I am the terrorist.'" Now, Kerr remembered that night. He had been tied up by someone wearing a mask, while his family was held captive. Ki-woon said, "The culprit targeted you because you had access to our base. But I know you didn't know who was behind it all either. The mastermind is Sun Gon, the owner of the Dorsen Group. If I can ensure the safety of your family, will you tell me everything?" Kerr hesitated for a moment, then said, "That person is my cousin. I accidentally told him where our training camp was when we were drinking. That night, when I got home, my family was being held hostage by him. He said that the person behind this was the most powerful and richest man in Korea. If I took the blame, my family, and he would live comfortably for the rest of our lives." Ki-woon said calmly, "I've recorded our entire conversation, but I won't use it until you give me permission." Afterward, Ki-woon also left. Assistant Hong arrived at the holding cell where attorney Jeong was being held, and together with team leader Seo-Hui, they woke her up. However, they discovered she had stopped breathing. The AI assistant, Jong-sil, reported, "She's been without breath for over 4 minutes and 16 seconds. Therefore, the two pretended to order Attorney Jeong's release, but it was just a ruse. Being a professional diver, Attorney Jeong immediately used a plastic spoon to subdue Assistant Hong and demanded that Seo-Hui open the door for her. The team leader then ordered Jong-sil to open the door. The attorney led Assistant Hong to a car and told her to open the door. Then, Assistant Hong herself got behind the wheel. When team leader Seo-Hui ran downstairs, Attorney Jeong released Assistant Hong outside and continued driving away. Seo-Hui immediately ordered the AI assistant to lock the main gate. The gate came crashing down just as the car reached it, rendering Attorney Jiang unconscious, but her pulse was still present. Meanwhile, reporters had surrounded BF headquarters to cover the potentially groundbreaking announcement that director Yun Jia-yu was about to make. Department head Onsen approached and declared, "We will not be proceeding with a full-body organ transplant." The reporters swarmed him like flies to honey. Onsen insisted that BF had successfully cultivated human organs and was using AI technology to provide the most precise support for transplants. However, he would not allow director Yun Jia-yu to replace all the organs in her body. As a childhood friend of hers, Onsen reiterated that since the age of 20, she had strived to create a world without the consumption of living organisms. Thanks to that, they had succeeded in creating cultured meat. She would continue to be an important figure for humanity and for BF, so they would not conduct experiments on her. Onsen went inside to meet Jia-yu and insisted, "I will quit if you participate in that clinical trial." Then, Onsen announced, "I found the real identity of the person who murdered Ho Seung. His name is Jai Sun-won, and he's 39 years old." The police went to his house to collect fingerprints, but the ID showed a different face. At that moment, Ki-woon also entered. Onsen explained that in addition to Professor Kim, another person had been brainwashed by him, the owner of the livestock farm who had fallen in front of her car. He used his position as a pastor to approach him, constantly saying that the government was hopeless and that it was the responsibility of the farmers to stop Yun Jia-yu. That's what drove him to attack her, and Dorson Group was behind it all. Ki-woon also announced, "Seonu Jun was behind the Azoran explosion back in the day. Seonu Yi probably wants revenge for his grandfather as well. He clearly knew that I had gone to talk to his mother, but he still allowed her to tell me everything." The Prime Minister's mother revealed that Chairman Seonu Jun had been looking into explosives 2 months before the attack. Jia-yu and Onsen wondered, why would Seonu Yi want the world to know that his father was behind the explosion years ago? Jia-yu explained, "I was invited by the Blue House to join the flight with President Lee Meng-do a week before departure. Before that, they had planned to invite another chairman, but they changed it to me. It is highly likely that Chairman Seonu Jun influenced the change to me." The immediate task was to fight to defeat Dorson Group. Jia-yu requested that Onsen prove that Dorson had planted Attorney Jiang as a spy at BF. They needed to find evidence proving that Chairman Seonu Jun and his son had informed the perpetrator, helping him know the location to murder Ho Seung. Just then, Onsen received a phone call informing him that Attorney Jiang had been in an accident while trying to escape. Afterward, Ki-woon spoke with Jia-yu privately and announced that he had to locate Kerr's cousin. He was in Dubai with his family. Jia-yu authorized Ki-woon to go to Dubai to find him. Ki-woon asked Jia-yu to promise him one thing: "Please don't have the surgery until I get back." Jia-yu dodged the topic initially, but then promised, "I won't have the surgery until you return." Seonu Yi informed his father, the chairman, that the police had identified the perpetrator, his father's henchman. Chairman Seonu Jun was furious and demanded that Seonu Yi capture him. He then expressed concern about Jia-yu's claims. If successful, BF would have a new market worldwide and soon surpass Dorson. It would be an incredibly lucrative market. Seonu Yi promised, "I'll find a way to capture Yun Jia-yu and bring all that transplant technology back to Dorson for you." The chairman affirmed, "That's the kind of asset that could sustain us for a lifetime." Owen went to the hospital to visit the lawyer, Jiang, and scolded team leader Seo Hui for acting carelessly and allowing this situation to happen. Seo Hui said, "I don't know where she got the plastic spoon to use as a weapon." Owen then remembered that he had left the plastic spoon for her and became very angry at his own carelessness. Chairman Seonu Jun tried to contact the spy who was also his mistress, but didn't know where lawyer Jiang was currently located. The next day, Ki-woon boarded a flight to Dubai. At this time, Prime Minister Seonu Yi made a statement to the press. "If Yun Jia-yu continues to conduct illegal experiments, we will proceed with a search of BF and arrest her immediately." Jia-yu saw this news report and considered proceeding with her surgery immediately but remembered Ki-woon's request. Subsequently, all the top organ transplant surgeons in the country were invited by Director Jia-yu to BF's headquarters. Onsen saw their presence and called Seo Hui, berating him. Why didn't you stop her? The team leader replied, if it's successful, it'll be a new achievement in the field of human biotechnology. Then, Seo Hui met with Yan Ya-yu. The director asked, is there a way to simulate lawyer Jiang's voice based on the orders she gave to Jiang Su? Seo Hui answered, it can be done. At this moment, Prime Minister Xianu Yi's hacking team successfully broke into BF's security system. Now, Xianu Yi received a report that Ki-woon had gone to Dubai and was no longer in Korea. Immediately after, he received a call informing him, we fooled BF by disguising the new firewall we created as theirs, so they haven't detected anything yet. Xianu Yi immediately called a minister, demanding, proceed with the search of BF headquarters immediately. At that moment, all the experts descended to the basement and began to admire the technology that BF had created for detecting all kinds of diseases. Captain C. Huey said, in order to perform surgeries without making any mistakes, we need you to provide your information and experience, including operation videos, so that everyone can learn from them. The doctors conferred with each other, and one said, if we were to compile all of our knowledge, it would probably take a very long time. Director Yun replied, only when everything is truly perfect will I lie on this bed. We are trying to avoid any mistakes from happening, and we have no intention of stealing your knowledge. Now, please admire the algae cultivation technology that we have spent 10 years creating. Meanwhile, Chief Onsen was already drafting his resignation letter. Ya-yu entered, demanding that Onsen give her the hitman's phone number. When Ya-yu tried to call, she couldn't get through, so she sent him a voice message. Jae-sun-won, come see me if you want to live. Onsen warned. He's with Dorson. It's unlikely he'll listen and come find you. Ya-yu replied, initially, I thought Dorson was hiding him. But when we tricked lawyer Jiang and announced that he was about to be arrested by the police, she immediately texted Dorson to let him know. So, Dorson also doesn't know where he is and is looking for him. That evening, Jae-sun-won hid in a forest and heard Director Yun's voice message asking him to come see her if he wanted to live. The next morning, Dorson Group's bodyguards also found their way to this place, but the tent was empty. Jae-sun-won quickly ran away, remembering Director Yun's warning. Do you think Dorson Group will leave you alone? When all your identities are fake, eliminating you will be as easy as pie for them. He got out of the car and discovered that the tires had been slashed. Pretending to surrender, he immediately attacked the two bodyguards pursuing him. Despite being injured, he managed to knock them both down and quickly drove away. At the hospital, lawyer Jiang woke up in her hospital bed but didn't recognize the mother who was taking care of her. Meanwhile, Si Hui was working when the AI assistant Jong Sil suddenly froze for a few seconds, causing him to request a system stability check. Just then, someone called to inform him that lawyer Jiang had woken up, so Si Hui immediately left. At that moment, a group of hackers also began to hack into BF's information systems. Afterward, Ya-yu and Onsen prepared to depart for the hospital to visit the lawyer Jiang. While in the car, Ya-yu received a phone call from Jae-sun-won. He demanded that the director come to see him alone. Onsen drove behind, noticing that the cars escorting Ya-yu had suddenly changed direction. Onsen immediately called Yun Ja-yu, urging her to be careful, as he didn't know Sun-won's true intentions. If only Ki-woon were here. Subsequently, they all arrived at a parking garage. Onsen stopped the car below to observe, while the car carrying Ya-yu proceeded upwards. Onsen then saw a car carrying two thugs also moving up. At that moment, Yun Ya-yu suddenly noticed blood flowing from a car and rushed out of her own vehicle to investigate. She discovered Jae-sun-won slumped inside. The bodyguard immediately smashed the car window. Ya-yu asked, "Who ordered you to do this?" But the man only pleaded with Ya-yu to take him to BF to save his life. Ya-yu ordered the bodyguard to take him away. Just then, a thug in the nearby car reported the situation and received orders to stop her. They immediately rammed the car carrying Ya-yu, pushing it forward. The driver quickly scrambled out to escape. The car carrying Ya-yu and Jae-sun-won lost control, plunged downwards, and flipped over on the road, completely wrecked. The two thugs tried to flee but were blocked by Onsen's car. However, they quickly managed to escape. Onsen ran over and saw that Jia-Yu's car was a total loss. A helicopter immediately proceeded to transport the two people trapped inside the car back to BF. Surgical experts were urgently mobilized to save director Yun Jia-Yu's life. Even though everything wasn't fully prepared, everyone had to get to work quickly. Prime Minister Sianu Yi received a report that Jai Sun-won was still alive and had been transported by BF's helicopter. He decided he had to act immediately. At the same time, the process of replacing Jia-Yu's organs with cultivated organs began. Unexpectedly, the police sent notification that they would be searching the laboratory in a few minutes. Soon after, a stream of police cars began arriving at BF's headquarters, followed by a large container truck. Riot police immediately took positions and announced that they would be searching BF for illegal activities and violations of medical law. Any action to obstruct us will be considered resisting a public official. The AI assistant Jiang Su coldly stated, "We refuse to cooperate, but there will be no acts of aggression." Suddenly, the automatic doors opened, surprising Onsen greatly. Jiang Sil also abruptly ceased functioning. Simultaneously, the computer systems under the secret room began to flicker rapidly. Then, the AI assistant Jiang Su shut down completely. From inside the container, a group of armed mercenaries suddenly stormed out. At the same time, Ki Woon also arrived in a car. The mercenaries quickly infiltrated the back of the headquarters, rappelled down, and entered through the ventilation shafts. Ki Woon quietly followed, then seized a weapon and took down two mercenaries. The remaining ones began destroying everything, while seizing all of the hard drives from under the laboratory basement. Ki Woon continued to take down another one, then hid behind the ventilation duct. A mercenary spotted him and fired continuously to hunt him down. Ki Woon suddenly jumped out, using an enemy as a shield to fight the remaining ones. Even so, he was hit by a bullet and had to retreat inside. When they entered the room, Ki Woon stormed out, fighting fiercely. After a struggle, he managed to subdue the mercenaries. Taking heavy steps forward, Ki Woon suddenly saw team leader Seo Hui being restrained by two mercenaries. He was forced to drop his weapon. At that moment, another one from behind unexpectedly knocked him unconscious. They demanded Seo Hui lead them to the cell culture room. The mercenary group ordered all the doctors to raise their hands in surrender and cease the surgery. Ki Woon realized Jia-Yu was the one undergoing the procedure. He then led the soldiers into the cell culture room and found Jai Sun-won lying on the hospital bed. A doctor suggested the police allow the surgery to continue to save a life, but he observed that the soldiers were behaving like thugs. One soldier approached to check on Jai Sun-won's condition and was suddenly attacked. Ki Woon also seized the opportunity to attack the two men restraining him. Seo Hui, along with the doctor, resisted one of the soldiers, causing bullets to fly everywhere. Fortunately, Jia-Yu was not hit. At that moment, Jai Sun-won breathed his last. Ki Woon put all his strength into fighting the two mercenaries. Assistant Hong also jumped in to help, putting one in a chokehold. Despite sustaining multiple injuries, Ki Woon managed to knock down his attacker. He ordered Assistant Hong to let go and subdued the last mercenary. Afterwards, exhausted, Ki Woon collapsed to the ground. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Sianu Yi appeared on a televised interview, asserting that his father, Chairman Sianu Jun, was not behind the tragedy that took his father-in-law's legs and countless officials and children in Azorin. He accused BF of spreading false rumors and being responsible for the deaths of 11 innocent lives in the recent shootout. When asked about former Captain Ki Woon's accusation that Chairman Sianu Jun was behind the bombing years ago, Prime Minister Sianu Yi claimed Ki Woon had psychological problems after witnessing the tragedy. When the reporter questioned whether the armed raiding party that infiltrated BF was hired by Chairman Sianu Jun, Sianu Yi immediately denied it. Then, the reporter played a recording featuring the voice of a woman speaking to Chairman Sianu Jun, informing him that she was at the hospital and feigning amnesia. Chairman Sianu Jun then asked, "Did that engineer expose me before he died? Do you know if Yun Jia-Yu is still alive?" The woman replied, "I don't know anything, but I will pretend to not remember anything about Dorson Group." The reporter revealed that the female voice in the recording was fake, created using AI technology based on the voice of a female lawyer who was suspected of being a spy planted by Sianu Jun within BF. However, the male voice was genuine and recorded in real time. The reporter stated that she would not reveal the identity of this person until a precise verification. Xianu Yi was stunned. He returned to his room and confronted his father. How could you be so stupid as to fall for such a trap? Chairman Xianu Jun immediately called his ex-wife, crying and pleading. Tell Xianu Yi not to do this to me. We are family. Don't accuse me, or everyone will die. At this point, former President Lee Man-jae appeared, asking his daughter, Xianu Yi, do you know who is behind what happened to me? The First Lady quickly explained that Xianu Yi didn't know anything but was extremely confused. Xianu Yi went in to see his father. His father asked, So, you knew about all my plans? The bombing from back then? And even how I was plotting to swallow up BS? Xianu Yi moved closer, trying to diffuse his father's rage. Chairman Sun Goon angrily said, Your grandfather never listened to me, even though I was the one who appointed him as president. I won't let anyone take anything away from me. Xianu Yi calmly replied, It's all going to be mine anyway. You said you'd live forever, didn't you? So when am I supposed to get it? I'd be fine with you living forever, so a few years in prison is nothing. He continued, You'll take responsibility for everything, including the mercenary team that broke into BF. With that, Xianu Yi let out a strained laugh. The Prime Minister began drafting a public apology. The investigative committee in Azoran sent him their findings today. They traced the money and discovered his father was the one who paid the terrorist group. The Prime Minister felt ashamed, having previously insisted his father wasn't the culprit. He announced a rigorous investigation and resigned. I apologize to everyone for the scandal my family has caused. From now on, I ask to be allowed to support this country as an ordinary citizen, just like everyone else. As for the lawyer Jiang, she still hadn't regained her memory and had to visit a psychiatrist regularly. When she saw Onsen there, she realized he was working at BF. Your company faked my voice and turned me into a spy in the media. But I don't remember being involved with you people at all. Onsen replied calmly. We worked together for 3 years. From now on, I won't be watching you anymore. Protect yourself, and don't end up like Professor Kim and that engineer. The lawyer went to see her psychiatrist and burst into tears, expressing how much she wanted to remember the past. At this time, Xianu Yi had achieved his goal of becoming the chairman of the Dorson Group. The Minister of Justice brought the hard drives seized during the search of BF and thought that Director Yun Jia-yu was probably dead. It seemed BF was trying to keep this a secret. When he heard the news about Jia-yu, Xianu Yi's face became somber. Xianu Yi's hacking team had now all been killed. A research team began to appear, cleaning up the scene and using those unfortunate souls as lab rats for clinical trials. A prosecutor informed Onsen. The armed group that broke into BF wasn't the police. Who killed them, after all? Onsen replied. We all fought to survive. Earlier, Onsen, along with Si Hui and the doctors, had fought off the mercenary team. He had done everything he could to protect Yayu's body. When Ki-woon was dragged away, Onsen picked up photos showing Ki-woon had captured the prisoner Ker's cousin. Afterward, Manyu the cat and Ki-woon's belongings were also moved. In a secret room beneath the basement of BF, Yayu's voice echoed. Ki-woon slowly opened her eyes,